This is another edition of me looking at your stamp collections to tell you what it is that I think. This gentleman actually submitted just one stamp.
I searched about these stamps, and they seem kind of rare and kind of worth a lot.
And he was wondering if this stamp had significant value because he had done a little bit of research online, and it seemed like there was a possibility that it did. That stamp is right here. It features King Gustav V of Sweden, and it was issued from 1921 to 1936. And if you take a look right here, you can see the sign of any stamp that is from Sweden, this SVERIGE, which I have listened to Google Translate at least a dozen different times, and I am absolutely not going to try to pronounce that properly. This stamp has 3 different Scott numbers associated with it. The first is number 170, which is a catalog minimum stamp. The second is Scott number 193 at $1.50, or Scott number 189A at $4,500. So the question is, how do I take a look at this stamp and decide which of those 3 catalog numbers it belongs to, because obviously it makes a huge difference in value. The first thing I notice about these listings is that Scott 193 is actually a listing for a booklet pane, and those stamps would be sold something like this. In order for a stamp to have come from a booklet, it actually has to be perforated on 2 sides, here and here, or possibly 3 sides, or depending on the size of the pane, all 4 sides. But you can see that these stamps in this album are actually only perforated on the left and on the right, and that means that these stamps were sold as coil stamps. And we can go ahead and eliminate Scott 193 as a possibility because these stamps are definitely coil stamps and are not booklet stamps. That leaves us with either our catalog minimum stamp, Scott 170, or the $4,500 variety, which is Scott 189A. And the question is, how do I know that this is a catalog minimum stamp? And the answer is, I don't. The difference between the catalog minimum and the $4,500 stamp is the existence of a watermark as noted in the catalog right here. Now, I'm not a Swedish stamp collector and I'm not super familiar with this issue, but I can tell you just from the catalog price, what that price is saying to us is that this is a very rare stamp. And there are probably only a couple of sheets that were inadvertently printed with that watermark on them. And so when you're assessing a stamp collection, you're always going to think horses and not zebras, meaning that if you have something that is undiscernible to the naked eye, you're always going to assume that that stamp is the lower value because the vast majority of times it's going to be, and you are not going to make yourself any money or be able to conduct business if you check every single stamp that has a possibility of a variety that could provide you a lot of money, because there's just not enough time in the day in order to do it. Collectors often assume that when a dealer looks through their stamp collection in order to make them an offer, they're going to be able to identify every single stamp that they're going to look at, and that just is not the way selling collections work. A dealer is going to take a look and see if anything jumps out at them as being especially significant. They're going to take a look at the collection and see what kind of collector they think you are, and then they're going to make a judgment call on to whether or not it's worth testing that specific stamp. When you're looking at a series of very similar stamps that are very low value in a stock book like this, I would be absolutely shocked if a dealer ever took the time to do so, and I definitely wouldn't do it myself. So even though you have some very gorgeous Swedish stamps from the 1920s and 30s, you don't have a lot of actual monetary value here. And keep in mind that if you like these videos, the only way for me to keep doing them is if you submit me your collection to look at.